Thank you very much, everybody, to participate in this great event and discussion. I already have a absolutely great feelings about our discussion, because we already discussed a lot of new ideas, a lot of new feelings, and new possible approaches to how to realize our idea, because our idea generally was kind of how to create a new format to be closer between Trio and Western Balkans. Even a lot of people immediately started to say that you are crazy, it's impossible, it's all of these countries has own problems, and if you are connected, all of these 9 countries, it will be even worse than and better for your approach. But what if I react a little bit on the current discussions on the issue, how to make the useful our proposing format of Western Balkans and Trio, I think that what is one of the conclusion of these 10 months of Russian full-scale aggression against Ukraine, that European Union and NATO, they didn't show the full capacity to be a leaders in our regions, and unfortunately, of course, and this is very paradoxically, but European Union was more leader than NATO in even in security issues, because NATO even now trying to continue keep a neutrality in this conflict. Even it sounds like crazy, but if you look at the reality, even the statements of General Secretary of the NATO every time talking that we'd like to be outside of the conflict, we don't want to participate, we don't want escalation, we don't want to the doors are open, but we want to give Ukraine and Georgia a member action plan. I cannot understand it. Definitely, I working with NATO for 20 years already, but since 2008 in April, I think it was a full disaster of NATO, and still we have problems. European Union deciding to give Ukraine, Moldova candidate status and give European perspective for Georgia, I think made a huge geopolitical progress by this, because it was a very brave step in face of Russians. Even if you look at the last 10 years, it was a romantic period, and a lot of European bureaucrats started to understand Russia. They told that, of course, it's a comfortable situation, comfortable format when we using cheap Russian gas, and keep Russia in rights to be a sovereign, let's say, democracy. How the sovereign autocracy it doesn't matter, but we use Russian energy, and in this case they were very pessimistic on Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia, that they never even talking about the European prospects. Now we have a different situation. Now we start to have this very fast progress, and why our idea is on creating a new platform. First of all, I'd like to thanks to Uliana for this proposition of multilateral platform, because it could be a multi-layer discussions on this. Even now in our discussion, we have a lot of ideas, and we try to explain each other what Western Balkans and Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia could propose, could want from this progress. And of course, in this multilateral platform should participate European Union representatives, because I had several discussions in Brussels actually, and internally in European Union, they think that European Union should change the approach for enlargement, because before it was purely, or maybe not purely, but kind of bureaucratic approach for enlargement. And a lot of people now, a lot of voices now inside of system of European Union trying to say that we should change it to geopolitical approach to enlargement rather than bureaucrat. Of course, we could say, talking for years about requirements, standards, chapters, points, whatever. But if you look in reality, if you just started to if we just continue bureaucratic approach to enlargement, we anyway given a geopolitical vacuum for Russians or Chinese, whatever, to keep influence on Western Balkans and trio, for example. I'm not talking about Belarus. Belarus is a good example how to be a European country, but be absolutely non-sovereign and non-independent state under total control of Russians. And actually on Monday, Putin will arrive to Minsk. And I think it will be a total proclamation that Belarus is a part of Russia. Of course, it will be symbolically sovereign state, but in reality, it will be part of Putin regime and will continue air and missile and maybe land attack against Ukraine very soon. So talking about the security a little bit, and actually about the Kyiv Security Compact. I just remind you that this document was published by President of Ukraine, and to be honest, from my point of view, it's not finished yet. I mean, the Kyiv Security Compact is a draft, but of course not complete document, and it's not a complete concept. The President of Ukraine proposed the principles of Kyiv Security Compact for countries that are not members of NATO or EU, so it's especially for us. And he proposed several points, like high readiness forces that can effectively respond to aggression, a massive joint training program with international trainers and advisors from the EU and NATO, advanced defensive weapon systems, including air and missile defense, cyber capabilities, advanced radar capabilities, access to EU funding to rebuild the national defense industry in line with EU, NATO standards and develop new defensive capability with EU member states, and territorial defense forces based on the concept of national resilience. Again, to be honest, of course, all of these points are very interesting, but they are not be automatically apply for all of our countries, especially for Western Balkans, which is in every Western Balkan country we could find a very unique situation in case of security. And what I think that we need to create a new format, maybe based on Kyiv Security Compact. But I think that the best way to be in security is NATO and the European Union, especially for our region. I mean, Western Balkans and Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia. So we could look at the Kyiv Security Compact like a temporary or some transition process, transition format, or in the process of advancing to NATO and the European Union, but to be stronger in this period when we out of this organization. Of course, we had a lot of discussions about the next possible format. Of course, we could add to President Zelensky propositions, and from my point of view, it will be very interesting intelligence cooperations, command and control and communications developments, and of course next generation weapon system development, and of course cybersecurity, what we could do together in all of 9 countries. Look at the already lessons from Russian-Ukrainian war and try to avoid the same mistakes, trying to build capabilities which will build the system enough to avoid next conflicts like Russian aggression against Ukraine. To be more practical on how to continue with security and defense cooperation in the case of our Western Balkan and trio format, we propose in that the new security framework can begin on the basis of the military assistance mission in support of Ukraine, which now is on the creation process. And of course, it could be that Moldova and Georgia will join this mission very easy. And of course, in case of expanding a similar format of cooperation to Western Balkans, it will be possible to extend the mission with appropriate consideration of the regional specifics. What I mean that, of course, the best practices now, the best lessons, methods, how to develop the security and defense sectors, we see in Ukraine, because every day we have new challenges, new threats, and Ukrainian people, Ukrainian armed forces working on it, how to deal with it. So if everybody in the United States, in European Union, in other countries, trying to get the best experience from the modern warfare, of course, you should go to Ukraine. And this military assistance mission support to Ukraine could be a format which all of our countries, I mean, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and of course, Western Balkan countries could study a lot. So I think it could be a good format for everybody of us to study lessons and get best practices, and of course to create a new format of communication between security and defense stakeholders in any echelon. I mean the government, non-governmental organization, think tanks, civil societies, whatever. And I think it could be a good example of cooperation. And of course, if you're talking about the hybrid warfare, I think EU should support development a joint cooperation format between Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia for countering hybrid interference. And Uliana proposes format, including, of course, disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, other threats. And I think that multilateral partnership platform for cooperation could be a good model for these. Of course, we will talk about the business, economical, culture, youth cooperation, but in security sphere, I think that multilateral partnership platform could be a good format to have discussions, to have exchange of information, of opinions, what we do now actually. But I think we should approach to construction of this multilateral partnership platform to build a good model of all of this exchanging of opinions and ideas for all of our countries to have a new understanding of the environment, and of course, as I started with, to give signals, to give a new, let's say, understanding of the geopolitical situation to European Union countries, to Brussels, because now we have an internal discussion, but I think that it's extremely important to bring this discussion to Brussels, because of course it's easier to say, okay, guys, we have structures for Western Balkans, we have some approach and model for Eastern Partnership, maybe for trio, but let's do not make it even more complicated, because Western Balkans have own problems, you have even more problems now, why you should join these problems. But our approach, I think, should be that we are not looking for joining problems, but we are looking for joining our new approach to geopolitical reality, and our geopolitical reality inside of European Union, and I hope in NATO. And I think together we could go even in more successful. And so we shouldn't actually be afraid of joining our regions to be closer to European Union. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to answer your questions.